Roland Mumford with Mumford.law. So I was corrected in my Whistling Diesel video that I did yesterday that the court had handed down a very limited gag order on Cody Detwiler. And we were finally able to access that local news article that gave some detail about what occurred. But Cody also did a video on his own on TikTok, which we're going to play in a moment. And then afterwards, we'll go more into detail going through the news article about what occurred in the courtroom and the details of the gag order. But this was basically a complete victory for Cody Detwiler. The limited order that was put down was that he could not share non-public court documents or records produced arising out of the investigation from either the local prosecutor or the state of Tennessee. But that would apply in any criminal court case, that a party cannot share non-public documents because we don't want to taint the potential jury pool. That would have applied in any criminal case. So that wasn't really anything of a victory for the prosecutor. They were very smart to have a local free speech attorney expert, professor at Belmont College of Law, Mr. Hudson. I know him personally, communicated with him in the past on some free speech matters. He's assisted me, and he's absolutely brilliant. So that was a very smart thing to do, and we'll talk about him a little bit more in detail. All right, let's take a look at this video by Cody Detwiler, and then the short clip after, and then we'll do my final take and analysis on the local news article and go into detail what occurred in the courtroom.
All right, everybody's asking me how court went today. I had the gag order court today to determine what I could talk about related to my case. And I am very pleased. I feel like we won. I am allowed to talk about my opinions, criticize the government, talk about the facts of the case, what is public knowledge, what I feel about certain things that I know about the case. The only thing they didn't want me talking about was like this not revealed investigative materials in the report about the case that could give me like leverage to let people know before there's a trial. So there is a small angle that they want to protect a fair trial, which I understand in a way. I think the judge was very reasonable and kind, and I'm happy with the outcome. But it's very interesting, they wanted the gag order before I made that video doing what they didn't like.
So let's talk about the news article that came out I was discussing, and this is apparently from the Tennessean. So let's recall that the local district attorney had filed that motion for the gag order, and that was for him to basically not say anything, for Cody Detwiler, Whistling Diesel, to not post anything, say anything, period. So as we know, the Williamson County Grand Jury, they indicted him on November 5th. He runs a $10 million follower YouTube channel, and he has a company, Whistling Diesel. Now, the article goes on to say that he had made several posts on social media, and in the words of the district attorney's office, which oversees Williamson County, Detwiler has been, quote, pontificating on the merits of the case, quote, calling out the investigator by name, forwarding conspiracy theories about government's justification for bringing charges, and making, quote, a slew of attention-grabbing non-sequiturs that serve no purpose but to inflame the passion of his followers, end quote. That's a quote, obviously, in the paper, but they're citing the motion. We talked about that last night. So let's talk about what happened in the courtroom. Now, during the hearing, according to this article, one of Cody's videos was played on the courtroom screen. Its title was summarized how he feels about the whole gag order business. Quote, they're trying to silence me, end quote. The video was posted December 7th and has been viewed 3.2 million times. So in the hearing, the district attorney's office backed off the initial version of its request, which it acknowledged would have been overly restrictive. So the November 24th motion had asked for an order prohibiting Detwiler from, quote, commenting on the case or its fact pattern in any fashion and from attempting to monetize his prosecution in any form, end quote. Well, as another person made the point in their video I saw today, everybody's profiting off of this. I'm making videos off of it. The Tennessean is doing an article on it. So Cody should be able to profit off of it also through exercise of his free speech. After a hearing in the courthouse, criminal court judge Dina Hood ruled that she will enter a limited gag order prohibiting Detwiler from posting information that is not public record. Quote, they're trying to silence me, end quote, Detwiler had read from and shared screenshots from a non-public Tennessee Department of Revenue investigative report he had received through the discovery in the criminal case. So apparently in that video he had done, he had referred to the investigative report and may have been discussing what was in it. The judge ordered him to take the video down. Detwiler said after the hearing he's going to trim parts of the video where he speaks about or displays the investigative report, but keep the video on YouTube. And I believe that's what he had said in his video. Now, Detwiler said the judge's ruling was, quote, reasonable, and it will preserve the integrity of the case and prevent an unfair trial while also preserving his freedom of speech. Again, it's important to note that the order put down that he cannot share non-public court documents or documents arising out of the investigative report, that would apply to any criminal defense case. So there's nothing special here that the prosecutor won. That's just standard procedure. So this was a complete victory for Cody Detwiler, WhistlinDiesel. He goes on to say there's nothing constitutional about preventing public information from being discussed and criticized. He said the article goes on to say that the prosecutor had argued a gag order was needed to ensure that Detwiler's trial was not prejudiced in Detwiler's favor, that everyone involved in prosecution remained safe, and to prevent Detwiler from profiting off his case. Well, Detwiler's been selling clothing featuring pictures of his mugshot in his indictment, as the article goes on to say. Now, I think this is what probably was the catalyst for this motion for the gag order coming forward. That's just my speculation. But I believe that whoever had sent a text message to a wife of an assistant district attorney there in that county saying, quote, the hell is this petty ass bullshit about ? End quote. And I believe that that's why this motion was filed. I could be mistaken, but that's my hunch. So this article says that an assistant district attorney's wife, who is a private citizen and not involved in the case, received a text from an unknown number of a screenshot of the Detwiler indictment in the message, which I just quoted. The prosecutor said the text is not directly connected to Cody Detwiler, but he regardless apologized in court for the text. I discussed David Hudson. He's a free speech attorney and a professor at Belmont University in the first part of this video. And he is a brilliant author on, I believe, more than 40 books on legal issues. He literally wrote, quote, I think the encyclopedia on free speech. I believe that's what his main book is called, which I'm going to order. I know him personally, and he's absolutely brilliant. That was very smart for the attorneys Joseph Hewson and Warwick Robinson, who were cited in the article as being Detwiler's attorneys. That was smart to bring him in to do that. I presume that was a limited scope of representation just for the purpose of arguing on the motion. Now, the article says that David Hudson, a free speech attorney and professor at Belmont University Law School, serving as Detwiler co-counsel with attorneys Joseph Hewson and Warwick Robertson, delivered a rousing argument on Detwiler's behalf. That's an interesting term for this author of this article, the Tennessean, to use, a rousing argument. Hudson said Detwiler's speech about the case against him, which, quote, very well may be an unfair prosecution, end quote, is inherently a matter of public concern. Cody, I do civil rights law 1983 litigation. If you hear about me, give me a call. If this case is dismissed or you get an acquittal and you have a result that is in your favor, I'd be happy to possibly look at this for you to see if we have a 1983 action. Now, quote, to restrict that speech, end quote, Hudson said, is, quote, an anathema to a free society, end quote. Detwiler said it's important for people to speak out against things they think are not right. Quote, overall, the important thing here is to stand up for what you think is right, and that's your right as an American, end quote. You know, somebody posted on a comment to my video yesterday, and I absolutely love the quote. He said it was a quote from a professor, I don't know who, and it basically said, don't ever mess with a millionaire who cuts their own grass. I thought that was brilliant. The November 5th indictment accused Detwiler of evading state taxes on his 2020 Ferrari, the article goes on to say, which Detwiler said in an Instagram story he registered in Montana. This goes on to say Montana does not collect sales tax on vehicles. Tennessee, on the other hand, exacts a 7% sales tax, and the local sales tax in Williamson County is an additional 2.75%. Detwiler's videos usually depict him purchasing expensive vehicles and pushing them to their limits, often destroying them. The Ferrari in the case was destroyed. That's what the article goes on, apparently, to. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. Please click like, share, and subscribe, and have a great day.